It's Tuesday, September 6th. In the headlines, government focused on modernizing healthcare system. Regionally, regional tourism stakeholders to meet next week. Internationally, Liz Truss faces a series of challenges as UK's new Prime Minister. And in sports, Anisa Mohammed takes leave of absence from West Indies women team. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The Jamaica Labour Party-led administration is modernizing the healthcare system in the country, so says Minister responsible for health, Dr. Christopher Tufton. He was speaking at the open house and exhibition ceremony for the rehabilitation of public health facilities in St. Catherine, held at the Church of Open Bible in Twickenham Park recently. Raquel Robinson reports.
The health information systems, because we have already started, Cable and Wireless is now which is the contractor that was chosen, installing hardware and networking over 130 healthcare facilities across Jamaica. We are to go to market soon for a software provider, and essentially we are modernizing the transmission, the storage of data to support a more efficient delivery of healthcare services through the health information systems that we're installing.
Dr. Tufton says this will cost around $8 million. He says with the investment in infrastructure and technology, we should have more efficiencies in transaction time and the cost.
You have an injury, you don't need to run with a file from one floor to the next. You transmit it electronically, doctors respond quickly, lives are saved, pain is eased, and it's just the modern way to go. In fact, this health information system would represent the most modern IT infrastructure in any health system in the Caribbean region. And we are proud, we should be proud as a country, as a people, that this is going to be done here in Jamaica. And the people of St. Catherine will benefit from that.
He says St. Catherine needs high levels of healthcare infrastructure, and this rehabilitation project should make the residents feel proud and hopeful. He shared what the new healthcare facility would look like.
So the facility is a 17,633 square meters, 6-story facility. It will have, as was seen on the screen, a range of services and new infrastructure: outpatient, pharmacy, endoscopy, surgical suite, intensive care unit, lab, medical records, staff lounge, very important. We have to treat our staff well, let them feel comfortable, underground parking, and some of the upgrades, cardiology, ophthalmology, psychiatry, will be added to the facility or upgraded to ensure that the facility benefits from the modern infrastructure and the needs of the people of the parish of St. Catherine and its environs.
He noted to ignore such a need would be to neglect those who have invested in the parish for housing and business. He also shared that the government of Jamaica has spent so far $4 million in preparation, and over the next 5 years, along with support from the IDB and the EU, to spend $87 million on the rehabilitation of public health facilities. Reporting for PBCJ News, I'm Danita Rodney.
The Houses of Representatives will resume sitting starting today, September 6th at Gordon House. The Houses of Parliament have been on summer break, but they will begin the new term with statements from Education and Youth Minister Favour Williams. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, is also down to make a statement. Members will also pay tribute to former Clerk of Houses, Mr. Edley Deans, CD. Mr. Deans was appointed Assistant Clerk in 1956 before moving up to Deputy Clerk in 1968. He served in that capacity until 1978, the year he was appointed Clerk. He retired in 1994. Deputy Director General of the European Union, Miriam Ferran, says Jamaica has a higher susceptibility to the adverse effects of climate change. She made the statement while speaking at the Hills to Ocean official project launch at the regional headquarters of the University of the West Indies.
Jamaica is particularly vulnerable given its geographical situation, but so are we in the European Union. And I have to say that I'm here today at a time that I don't think I would have ever expected, a time where a heat wave is reaching and striking Europe, and where the temperature in Brussels as we speak is higher as in Kingston. I think this has never been seen. And this is really just to illustrate that wherever we find ourselves in the planet, we are equally vulnerable.
She states that the Union will continue to support Jamaica in its fight against climate change.
The European Union has the firm intention to continue standing by the government of Jamaica in the fight against climate change. We want to do this in application of our own strategy. You may have heard of the Global Gateway strategy that the European Commission just adopted. This is a strategy that frames the way we want to cooperate with our partner internationally to lead to sustainable connectivity and sustainable activities. And not surprisingly, fight against climate change ranks among the first priority that we will continue pursuing for the future.
Ms. Ferran notes that the project is worth more than 700 million Jamaican dollars and is in collaboration with the 16.5 million euros granted to the island in the past.
This project, as I mentioned, is worth 750 million Jamaican dollars, nearly 5 million euros, and it's one piece of the overall contribution that the European Union aims at providing to the government of Jamaica to fight climate change and protection of and protect the environment. This is complementary to another very big operation, a budget support program that is worth 16.5 million euros, and that is particularly dedicated to protection of forests.
The European Union is an international organization comprising 27 European countries and governing common economic, social, and security policies. The EU has continually provided the island with grants over the years to assist in the country's development and improvement of livelihood. Onion farmers in St. Thomas have adopted measures to their agricultural production because of climate change. The measures have made their production system more resilient, resulting in bumper crops. Our reporter, Marlon Samuels, has more in this report.
Record onion production is likely this year from farmers in St. Thomas. This after farmers adopted to the conditions imposed on them by climate change. The adaptation measures include changing the timing of their field operations. They previously planted onions in late November or early December. At that time, they had to battle a number of insects, including the beet armyworm. They are now planting onions from late September to early November. The Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA, has also been supporting the farmers. They have given them training in plant protection, more efficient irrigation practices, pests, and disease management. This has resulted in bumper yields. More than 100 hectares of onions have been produced in the parish. Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries Pernell Charles Jr. says St. Thomas has exceeded the national yield of 17 tons per hectare. They are producing between 22 and 38 tons per hectare. The bumper crop is good news not only to farmers. It's also good news for consumers due to the nutritional benefits, flavor, and low cost. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
School is back in session, and unlike the past 2 years, students across the world are now back to face-to-face learning. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, students have had to rely on digital classrooms to continue their education safely. However, the world has adapted to a new normal, schools included.
This is an incredibly exciting time of year for parents and for kids who are going back to school. They're really excited about that start of that school year. And what we need to do to protect our kids is to protect each other, right? So first and foremost, the virus circulates in the community. So everything that we can do within the community to reduce the spread, that's where we start. So getting vaccinated, taking simple measures to reduce your potential exposure to this virus. Self-testing is really helpful. Within schools, they've had a couple of years now to deal with COVID-19, and many schools have put into place provisions to try to prevent the spread. Distancing in schools, improving ventilation within the schools, as simple as opening windows. But some schools have also invested in improving ventilation, and we would recommend that in buildings where people live, where people work, where people study, and that includes in schools. Making sure that teachers are vaccinated. And in many countries, there is vaccine that is recommended for children and adolescents. So again, follow the national guidance for that and receive the vaccine. Hand hygiene remains important, not just for COVID, but for many other pathogens that circulate. So it's that do it all. You don't have to do everything all at the same time, but washing your hands, disinfecting your hands, wearing of a mask, informing your kids, talk to your kids. Talk to them about what the current risk is in the area that you live in and what they can do to be part of the solution. But we really do need kids in school for their education, for their security, for their development. In many countries, it's where children receive food and just sort of that mental nourishment that they need. So it's really important that kids get back to school.
In business report, Cygnus Credit Investments Limited expanding regional reach. Our reporter Danita Rodney has more on this story, plus other updates.
Cygnus Credit Investments Limited (SCI) is looking to reimagine its growth profile as it focuses on expanding its private credit offerings in the region along with scaling its Puerto Rican operations. This announcement was made despite the 24% drop in consolidated net profit in the 2022 financial year. The company is seeking to expand from 8 territories and 11 industries to 13 regions and 16 industries. SCI also says it is in phase 2 where a new Cygnus company related to its portfolio manager will focus on the integration and efficiency of the operations. For your market updates, in foreign exchange trading for Monday, September 5, the US dollar sold for an average of $152.08. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $116.31. The pound sterling traded for $176.58, and the euro sold for an average of $154.41. In JSE trading, the JSE index declined by 930 points to close at over 300,000 units. The junior market index advanced by 82 points to close at over 4,000 units. The combined market index declined by 123 points to close at over 300,000 units, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 2,145 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 110 stocks, of which 38 advanced, 54 declined, and 18 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Viable Preference, Barisa Investments Limited, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, Virgin Paints Jamaica Limited, and Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU Deferred Share. The overall volume leaders were Fosrich Company Limited with over 8 million units, Wigton Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares with over 5 million units, and One-on-One Educational Services Limited with over 4 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Clico Investment Fund was the volume leader with over 3,000 shares, followed by Calypso Macro Index Fund with 1,000 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Government of Barbados Bond Series B was the volume leader with over 5,000 shares. They were followed by Goddard Enterprises Limited, which traded 200 shares. In regional business, In spite of the burden of external shocks and domestic challenges, Guyana continues to maintain its position as a global leader in economic growth with a massive expansion of the economy in the first half of the year. More from Newsroom Guyana.
Although Guyana's economic growth recorded at 36.4% for the first half of 2022 is largely credited to the oil and gas industry, the non-oil sectors were not left behind. With the non-oil economy growing by 8.3%, the overall growth is a reflection of the government's supportive policy stance. Guyana has achieved this expansion in the economy even as global growth prospects have been revised downwards, now projected at 3.2% and significantly lower than the estimated 6.1% growth recorded in 2021. It follows the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the disruptions the war has added to existing supply disruptions and further exacerbating already high commodity prices and soaring levels of inflation first brought on by the global COVID-19 pandemic. The growth in the non-oil sectors can be credited to higher individual expansions in the agriculture, forestry and fishing sector, which expanded by 10.9% in the first 6 months of 2022. This sector is projected for further growth at 11.9% despite shortfalls in rice cultivation and sugar production. The extractive industries, including mining and quarrying, saw growth at 64.6%, with a forecast of 99.9% full-year growth to be supported by the petroleum and other mining industries. The petroleum sector itself expanded by 73.5%, with 34.6 million barrels of oil produced in the first half of the year. In the manufacturing, services and construction sector, growth was also recorded at 7.6% for services and 20.4% for construction. However, the manufacturing sector contracted by 11.4%. Notwithstanding, the projected growth for the manufacturing sector is 7.5% by the end of the year. Consistent with the expansion in the non-oil productive sector, credit to the private sector rose by 7.5% to $308.3 billion. This primarily reflects expanding credit to the services sector, manufacturing sector for real estate mortgage loans, and to households. With supportive measures in place to continue increasing economic activity, overall GDP growth for 2022 is now projected at 56% and non-oil growth at 9.6%. Further investments in non-oil sectors have been prioritized to ensure a strengthened and diversified non-oil productive sector.
In market data for oil, oil fell after a two-day rally as concern returned about weaker demand and the prospect of more interest rate hikes. Brent crude was down $2.67 to $93.07, and West Texas Intermediate fell to $86.61, down 26 cents. That was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Denida Rodney.
In regional news, in the Bahamas, the controversy regarding marital rape is taking the spotlight once again. After the Supreme Court's ruling last week, Prime Minister Philip Davis is weighing in on the issue, commenting, "Violence is violence."
Italian Prime Minister Philip Davis is calling a recent Supreme Court ruling curious after a wife accused her husband of having sex with her numerous times against her will.
Violence is violence. I don't like describing rape at all. I think marital is descriptive, that detracts from the substance of what rape is all about.
Davis reasoning that the law says if a husband and wife are separated, rape can occur. On August 29th, Supreme Court Justice J. Denise Lewis Johnson granted a woman a divorce on the grounds of cruelty. The woman claimed her husband would force intercourse and made her feel like a rape victim throughout the marriage. The controversial ruling adding that there is no rape in marriage, reigniting calls for government to take action on marital rape.
It's curious that a judge can say that a woman who claims that she was raped by her husband cannot use that as a ground of divorce when physical abuse could be, and rape is physical abuse.
Last week, Social Services Minister Obi Wilchcombe saying it's time to stop sitting on the fence on marital rape issues, while today the Prime Minister once again denouncing all forms of violence.
Relationships are being stretched by reasons of egos and personalities and all the external issues that impact relationships, and we need to be able to address those by getting to the root causes of why people react in the way they do.
In St. Lucia, the Caribbean Examination Council results release ceremony was held on Monday, September 5.
On Monday, St. Lucia's Ministry of Education hosted the ceremony for the release of the Caribbean Examination Council's results. These results have notoriously been agonized over by students from across the region. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Michelle Charles, says the mental health of students has been taken into account in this year's iteration of examinations.
The psychological trauma brought on by less contact hours, learning loss, and other psychosocial factors really placed our students under immense pressure. But as the saying goes, diamonds are created under pressure, and we all know that diamonds shine brightly.
Dr. Manning, Director of Operations at CXC, says the Council has afforded students every opportunity to perform well at the examinations.
Hardships is where you may have situations of death in a child's family, the death sometimes of a parent. Candidates may have contracted COVID or any other illness. We do take this into consideration, and the candidates are not disadvantaged in any way. We offer what is called an assessed grade, and the candidates are graded.
Dr. Manning also congratulated St. Lucian students on their performance in the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examinations this year.
In Trinidad and Tobago, following calls from members of the TNT Unified Teachers Association to stay home, to rest and reflect on the government's 4% offer, school attendance by both teachers and students were less than 50%.
The Ministry of Education says teacher attendance on Monday stood at 27% in primary schools and 31% in secondary schools. And according to its data, it said 17% of students were present at primary schools, with 39% of students at secondary schools. The data from the ministry comes as many teachers were swayed by tutor on its call for a day of rest and reflection. Education Minister Dr. Nian Gadsby-Dolly said Monday was a historic day with the return of physical classes for the new academic year since 2019, and hopes all stakeholders will work together for the students. The minister added that both students and teachers need to make up for lost time.
Disappointed today that they didn't have school, or they didn't have all of the teachers out of school, and I know that everyone is looking forward to getting on with the business of school as we continue tomorrow. My message to all teachers, parents and students is that we have reached the point of physical school. We are very happy as a country to have done that, and we are really looking forward to all of us supporting each other as we move forward. We have a lot of work to do.
The minister added that both students and teachers need to make up for lost time.
Extremely critical for the future of our country. Losing 2 years of physical school, I don't think any country can really quantify the effect on students. And of course, there are students who would be more affected than others. So that's why the collaboration is between all stakeholders is extremely critical at this time.
Dr. Gadsby-Dolly said there are still schools undergoing infrastructural work, but noted that those works will continue after school and over the weekend to ensure classes continue as normal.
The Acting Secretary General of Caribbean Tourism Organization, CTO, Neil Walters, says he believes the interaction between the media, regional and international tourism stakeholders later this month in the Cayman Islands will be substantive and serve to strengthen existing relationships and lead to productive outcomes for the sector. Tourism ministers, directors and other stakeholders will participate in the CTO's destination media briefings in the British Overseas Territory from September 12, which marks the opening day of activities for the CTO business meetings and the Caribbean Aviation Day event, which ends on September 15. The CTO said that this year's briefings will take on special significance as they will be the first to be staged in person since the onset of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Britain's new Prime Minister Liz Truss takes over at a time of deep economic uncertainty and multiple international challenges. Al Jazeera's Paul Brennan reports from 10 Downing Street in the United Kingdom.
The summer has been quiet here at Downing Street, the political attention elsewhere. But as Liz Truss sits behind her desk here at number 10 for the first time, the political tempo accelerates immediately. Urgent issues are screaming for attention. Her inbox is full. The number one priority at number 10 Downing Street is undoubtedly Britain's deepening cost of living crisis, and central to that is the cost of gas and electricity. IMF data says Britain is being hit harder than any other Western European country by massive fuel price rises. In 2021, a typical UK household paid around $1,400 a year for energy. By early next year, an average bill could hit $7,600 a year. It means fuel poverty for millions of people. The new Prime Minister says she has a plan.
It was perhaps slightly naive early on to suggest that somehow you could get through it without there being some form of handout. I would expect very early on that she will come out with a large package that is designed to solve this problem. That will be criticised. Many people will say there are problems with it.
Energy costs are also driving another urgent inbox priority, inflation. In July 2021, inflation in the UK was just 2%. Now it is 10.1%, and one forecast predicts that next year it will rise above 22%. Households are seeing the price of basic staples like bread and milk increase at a rate not experienced since the 1970s.
Liz Truss has looked at the current economic environment and said it's time for some tax cuts. It's time to free up and liberalise the individual and allow growth to flourish through the government for a while, taking less of our money and potentially even taking on some debt. For me, that's a perfectly sensible economic message.
Northern Ireland is another immediate issue. Truss is poised to unilaterally set aside parts of the post-Brexit trade deal signed with the European Union. She's unhappy with parts of the deal relating to Northern Ireland. The EU has warned that ripping up the deal would risk sparking a trade war with Europe. International diplomatic challenges also need Liz Truss's attention. 7 months since Russia invaded Ukraine, Britain's role in NATO is vitally important, and maintaining relations with European neighbours strained due to Brexit is a constant challenge. And finally, there's the question of a general election. Truss doesn't need to call one until January 2025. She's publicly said she won't call an election until 2024. But opinion polling suggests the British public want one this year. And with a winter of severe economic hardship inevitable, Liz Truss may decide her best chance of victory is to go early. Ultimately, Liz Truss's agenda will depend very much on Liz Truss's own priorities, how she intends to put her mark on a job she's fought so hard to win. But she inherits a portfolio of problems and challenges perhaps unprecedented since World War II.
In sports, reggae boy Kaheem Paris has signed a 4-year deal with Dynamo Kyiv, a football club based in the capital of war-torn Ukraine. The 22-year-old 6-foot winger has made the move from Slovenian side Koper, where he made 42 appearances in the top league last season, scoring 11 goals and providing 3 assists. The former Dintil Technical High School star had previously featured for 2nd Division Slovenian, scoring 17 goals in 19 games on loan from Jamaica's Cavalier FC. Paris excelled for Jamaica at under 17, under 20 and under 23 levels before being elevated to the senior squad in 2017. Vice captain of the West Indies women's cricket team, Anisa Mohammed, has decided to take a leave of absence from international cricket for a period of 6 months. Mohammed requested to take a break from the game with immediate effect after a hectic year of cricket, both home and abroad. She says the decision came with the full support of Cricket West Indies. Mohammed made her debut for West Indies at the age of 13 at the Women's Cricket World Cup qualifiers in Holland in 2003. She established herself as the premier spin bowler for the West Indies women, going on to become the first cricketer, male or female, to take 100 T20 international wickets and ultimately the leading wicket taker in the format with 125 scalps. And that's the news. Thanks for watching.